Spring is in full bloom across Ukraine, and the winter wheat will soon be ready for harvest. The Russian invasion, however, has everyone focused on mere survival, and the fighting will likely ensure much of this wheat never gets harvested. And the wheat stored in these silos near Odessa can't make it to market because of Russia's blockade of ports on the Black Sea. That bodes poorly for many countries that rely on Ukrainian wheat for survival. In Lebanon, it's estimated the country will be out of grain in less than 2 months.
The impact of the Ukraine war on Lebanon is going to be unfortunately multifaceted, and we've seen that already, not only in the wheat supply that's coming into the country, but even calls to our hotline for families looking for extra support. Normally, UNICEF supports 130,000 children every month with a small cash grant of $40. And in recent weeks, the number of calls to our helpline has more than tripled as families have really struggled to put food on the table. Unfortunately, the seeds of the crisis in the country for children was sown quite some time ago, but now that rate of deterioration has widened and been accentuated even further in the past 2.5 years of the economic crisis, and new cohorts of children are being affected, including Lebanese children that may previously have been on the borderline of poverty. But now, with 80% of the population living in poverty, it means that far more children are being exposed to poverty and multi-dimensional deprivations that will have long-term consequences.
So what we are observing today in the month of March is that the food price index has increased to 159.3 points, which is an increase of 17.9 points with respect to February. This is the highest historical level of the food price index since 1990 when it was first launched. And this is mostly because of cereals and because of vegetable oils. And what this means, it means that Ukraine and Russia Federation are key exporters of cereals, 30% of cereals in the world, and they export around 63% of sunflower to the world, which is oilseeds. So that's the reason why the food price index is increasing.
Exchange rates on the currencies and it affects the prices of the fertilizers we buy and the grains we sell. So we could be constantly watching it, and that really does drive the way we plan our way forward. The challenge is addressing those and planning a way forward so that we can carry on producing profitably but still provide food, as you know, that's our job, at a reasonable cost to consumers. If it means there's less grain on the world market, then we're going to have to step up and produce more, which means we're going to have to source our inputs from somewhere else at the best price we can get them. But ultimately, the price of the inputs will drive the grain price. The production has dropped because the Ukrainians are maybe not going to produce any or some rape this year, so there's going to be more demand. So effectively, we want to grow more rape going forward.
A lot of children who are getting infections that need treatment with antibiotics and with basic medications, and now they're choosing to go without the treatment, and these health issues are becoming more prolonged and more pronounced and have worse long-term consequences for the health of the child and for young people.
So there are several effects of the war in Ukraine. The first is what is happening inside, and the people in Ukraine which are losing food security, the people which are being displaced, which are right now more than 4 million people, which are also being affected. And then there is the effect on the world because of the increasing prices at the levels we are observing today in cereals, especially in wheat and maize, not yet in rice, because rice we have very good supplies. That means that people which are the poorest, which their expenditure depends on food, the biggest share of their expenditure, will be the mostly affected. And the countries that used to import from Ukraine, around 50 countries import 30% of their cereals from Ukraine and Russia Federation, and of those 26 import 50%. But there is one more effect, which is very important for us, which is the access to fertilizers. And outside of the prices of food, the prices of fertilizers has been going substantially up. And why is this so important? Is because it will affect the production of the next season. And that's where we are really concerned.
And in Egypt, more than 80% of the 270 million loaves of bread the country consumes each day are made with wheat from Russia and Ukraine. So here, people see big problems on the horizon. In Cairo, people on a fixed income are already feeling the pinch of high prices.
The bread in Egypt is like the backbone because most of the people need bread to eat. And the point is the price for the bread went up. Some here for the bakery doesn't make much more, like before. He came to make less number of breads. So now if you have to get like 10 pieces, you got just 5. The bread came to be 30% more, which is like 65, 70 piastres per piece, and in somewhere it can be £1 one piece.
Food security has always been extremely important here in the desert in Egypt. This granary beside me, some people believe, was built by Joseph from the Bible in the 7 fat years that Egypt had before the 7 lean years, where they stored up grain and then sold it to the entire world. And they believe that the money that they gained from all of that grain enabled them to build some of the biggest monuments in the world, including the Great Pyramid. But today, Egypt is much less prepared for what looks to be lean years ahead. To counter this, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi has demanded the nation's farmers dedicate a portion of their land to growing wheat. Those who fail to produce their quota face fines and possible jail time. This Egyptian farmer says threats aren't necessary.
I'm happy to grow more wheat this year because the prices are much higher. I've already sold all my winter crop and it will give my family a good life.
Any added grain grown by local farmers, though, won't come close to making up the shortfall from Ukraine. For that reason, Egyptians are cutting back already and blaming Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, the flour also here get really more expensive because it's a crazy Russian government. He's crazy.